With advances in technology, today's production rifles are far more accurate than those of even just a few decades ago. Even a bone stock, out-of-the-box production rifle like this is capable of producing sub-minute of angle groups like you're going to see in today's video. Now, in today's video, we're going to show you some techniques, give you some pointers on how to test your rifle to see what kind of groups it can produce. Now, maybe you don't have a heavy barrel rifle like this. Maybe yours has a sporter weight barrel. Maybe it's got a wood stock rather than synthetic. Whatever it is, we hope you use some of these techniques, a few of these points, just to test your rifle and see what kind of groups you can get from it. Now, obviously, one of the important factors in accuracy is the rifle itself, and for this video we're using a Remington 700 Police in 308. The reason being that the 700 Police is a common production rifle, but it's also one of the most accurate. Now, a key to accuracy is repeatability and eliminating as many variables as possible. Remington has done that with 700 Police by taking a heavy barrel that's over 3/4 of an inch in diameter and free-floating that in a Macmillan synthetic stock, and also aluminum bedding the receiver in the stock as well. It's not a really pretty rifle, but it can really shoot. There are some who say that heavy barrels are more accurate because they're not affected by barrel harmonics, meaning different vibrations from bullets moving down the barrel. Nearly everyone is in agreement that heavy barrels aren't subject to flexing as much from heat of the shot from one to the next. They tend to be much more stable in terms of temperature. A free-floated barrel has a slight gap between the barrel and the stock, so that the barrel remains independent of any pressure put on the stock, whether from handling or, in the case of wood stocks, from swelling of the stock due to humidity. You can check to see if your barrel is free-floated by sliding a piece of paper between the barrel and the stock and going all the way back to the chamber. It should slide easily underneath the barrel. Just as with free-floating the barrel, aluminum bedding the receiver keeps the receiver from being moved around when pressure is applied to the stock. Okay, that's the rifle. Now let's move on to talking about the other gear and then about your role in all of this. For the video, we're using a 6.5 by 20 power loophole scope. Now, obviously, the higher the magnification on the scope, the more accurately you can position the crosshairs on the target. That's not to say that you can't use a lower power scope and still get good results. It's just the higher magnification scope makes it easier to do the job. Your choice of ammunition is critical, not just to this exercise, but to all of your shooting in general, obviously. Now, it's almost guaranteed that hand loads specifically tailored to your rifle will outshoot factory ammunition. Now, that's not to say that always the case, but probably 95% of the time. For this exercise, we're using hand loads that have been really extensively tweaked to match this rifle for maximum accuracy. The front of the rifle needs to be firmly planted. And you can use an inexpensive rest like this, an expensive rest if you like, sandbags, block of wood, whatever, but the rifle needs to be solid. Sandbags or a commercial bag like this make for an excellent rear support. You can position the bag along the incline of the bottom of the stock for course elevation adjustments. Then for micrometer adjustments, you can squeeze the bag to move the reticle up and down on the target till you're exactly where you want to be. Once you're on target, hold that squeeze until you've taken the shot. And now it's time for the variable of you to enter the picture. The idea here is for you to provide a rock-steady shooting platform and be able to repeat that exact same stance from one shot to the next. Get your cheek in place, and remember where you put it so that from one shot to the next it's exactly the same. Have your eye the same distance from the scope. Your two elbows and your weak hand should form a tripod. Left elbow, right elbow, and then the weak hand grasping the sandbag. Try to pull the rifle toward your shoulder with the same amount of force from one shot to the next. Try to grip the rifle with your shooting hand with the same amount of force. If your rifle doesn't have a free-floated barrel, try not to apply any pressure on the forend of the rifle. Again, you want to keep everything exactly the same and keep your stance rock steady. Your target should have a grid on it so that you're able to line up the horizontal and vertical lines on your reticle so you can match that every time. If your rifle is slanted left or right from one shot to the other, your shots are going to be off left to right, one shot to the other. Now you're ready to take your shot. Now that you've taken your shot, it's time to let the barrel and the chamber cool down to ambient temperature. So open your bolt and then catch that piece of brass that goes flying past your hand. Now get up and go do something else. Talk to your range buddies, clean out your range bag, whatever. But it's critical that you let the barrel and the chamber cool down to where they were when you started, back to ambient temperature. The reason this is critical is that ammunition will shoot differently depending upon temperature. Now, serious hand loaders will vary their powder charge depending on the temperature they expect to be shooting in. So if you start out with a cold barrel, cold chamber at let's say 60 degrees, and then on your second shot you put your round into a warm chamber, you may be shooting that round at what would be like 80 or maybe even 90 degrees, and that's going to make a big difference in your shooting. So let the rifle cool back down to where it was when you started. Just to check, put your hand on the outside of the chamber and then stick your finger inside, and then compare the temperature there to, let's say, the end of the barrel where it should already be cold. Only then should you take your next shot. Okay, now let's see what we've got. Okay, we are at point 0.6 and change. So subtract out the bullet diameter of 0.3. That puts us at 0.3. Center to center for a 5-shot group measuring 0.3 at 100 yards. That's exceptional for a factory rifle. Now, we also did a group earlier, wasn't quite as good, had a different powder charge. Let's take a look at that one. With this group, we are at just about 1 inch exactly from edge to edge. Subtract out 0.3 again for the bullet diameter, and that's 0.7, which is still very, very good for a production rifle. And this one, we've got a flyer here, unfortunately, but it is a more open group than the first one, which had a different powder charge, obviously better powder charge. That just goes to show you how much hand loading can affect the performance of your rifle. Now let's do something a little bit more fun than just punching paper. So we've got a piece of gum and a dime. Now maybe you did this when you were a kid. Let's give it a shot. And let's go try. That's why military and police snipers, as well as competition shooters, use the Remington 700.